So here's a quick demo of part 2 of our tutorial about how to create an Amplify React web application, serverless and secure. What we're going to do is we will add the API. Once we have it, we'll invoke parameters. We will also test it locally with a mock function, which is pretty great and easy to do. Then we'll push it to the cloud and test it from there again. And we'll use Postman for that. So here we go. So here's our IDE with a terminal window. First thing we have to do to add our API is pretty obvious. Say Amplify add API. So we're getting a few questions here. We do a classical REST API, not GraphQL. Friendly name. So what are we getting here? We're getting a proposed name. Let's do something like AR demo customers, because customers is the entity that we want to use for finally. So for the path, we also add, remember, if you have a REST API, you need a path to your resource. Let's do customers, and to retrieve one customer first, identified by an ID. So this is the path, following pretty much the given example here, right? So for the Lambda function name, we do the same. We say AR demo customers. Need to be careful, this Lambda function name has to be unique inside of your AWS account. So here we do Python. You can do anything what you prefer, but I think Python is a great language to write serverless functions. We don't need advanced settings, and we don't want to edit the local Lambda function. Now we'll see how that goes. Oh, we see there's a yes as the, let's go with that. So we see what happened is we have an editor open here with the index py. That's the entry point. That's the main function. Green message, successfully added. Restrict access. Yes, the internet is a bad place, so we definitely want to restrict API access. And we say yes for authenticated users only. Control all. We don't want to make it more granular at this point. So once we have an authenticated user, that authenticated user will have permission for all actions they can take: create, read, update, and delete. But we see we could do that more granular here at this point. And for now, we are done. No, not add another path. We can do that later, and we will. So the question is, do we have a chance to test this function locally, that we do not have to do the tedious way to push it to the cloud and test it that way? Because if we think about having a database invoked, maybe complex database operations, a developer will likely need a few cycles to get this done. And yes, there's a way. Clear this and use the mock capability of Amplify, CLI Amplify mock function. Give the function name, we have it here, AR demo customers. That's what we defined. Now we're getting asked for an event file. We'll come back to that later. For now, we just confirm. There may be a few things happening in your environment when you do that for the first time. You also might have to provide a Python virtual environment for that. But here we are. Execution is finished. So see what we get here. We get the received event, and that is in compliance with what we have in our code, right? So we get a console print here, received event. There's the event status code. Oh wait, here, received event. Test event, where is this coming from? Now remember that file that we had to provide, event.json? So this looks like a definition file. So event.json is the file we can use, or you can even define more files and provide them at the mock event. We can put in anything we want to the payload. So this is, and down here with status code 200, this is already the result. So we get automatically the result printed out here. We get a 200, and we get the body hello from our new Amplify Python Lambda, which is what we have in the body here, right? So yay, finished execution. So that has worked. Now the question is, how can we invoke parameters possibly, right? So a function, API function, doesn't make sense if I can put anything that I want to process. So for that purpose, we should take advantage of that event file, put something more in. So let's do this. So by this you can see what we could possibly do. So we could invoke different HTTP methods or even paths. We could put in query string parameters, that's what we're doing, and also path parameters. Of course, this has to be reflected in our Lambda function. So we have to change that as well. So here's the updated code for our Lambda function. We see we have the standard handler here. We get the event in, we print it out. Out of the event, we can extract the parameters like ID and the query string parameter name that we added here, containing Mike for the example. And of course, we'll invoke those just simply here in the output message. So very simple use case, but you can imagine once we have access to what we put in to the payload of our request, into the payload and into the parameters, we can do a lot of things. Let's do this. Do another mock. And yes, we use the same file, event.json, that's the one we've changed. And here we are. So this time our body, wait, we scroll up, we see inside of the event, we see the parameters that we handed over, and in the output body, we will see Mike and the ID 1, so they have been processed through our function. In the next demo video, we will push this API to the cloud and we will test it from there.